I'm walking down Lechem Road in Greece. This is the ancient city of Corinth, where Paul came to preach about 2,000 years ago. There's a lot of history to this place, so you want to stay tuned, because Global Mission Snapshots starts right now.
Just before he went up to heaven, Jesus gave us a command. He gave us a mission. Jesus said, "Go. Go unto all the world, telling them of His love." This is our mission. This is our global mission.
Hello, I'm Gary Krause and welcome to Global Mission Snapshots. As we just saw, Earley Simon recently visited the ancient city of Corinth, where one of God's great missionaries, the Apostle Paul, lived and worked while on one of his missionary journeys. Today we'll be talking with Earley about Corinth and how those ancient streets relate to mission today. We'll also be talking with Marshall and Rosemary, a young couple serving in a very challenging area of the 1040 window. We'll learn how Adventists are touching lives in that area. But first up, let's watch a video story shot by Todd Gessley called My Greatest Find.
Went on vacation lots of times, come out here to Montana, and always told myself I'm going to live out here someday. And in '86, I decided I'm going to work my way around the country, and this is where I ended up. A husband in 1993, a husband and a daddy found me, and that was as far as I went, was Lewistown, Montana, and today I'm in White Sulphur picking up garbage. Other people's trash is other people's treasures, you know, and there's never a boring moment. One time, I picked a bag out of a barrel. That's when we used to have the 55-gallon drums. It was a black bag, it was heavy, and I thought it was kitty litter. I didn't think too much of it, and I flung it in the back of the hopper, and it broke, and pennies went all over. And I shoveled pennies into a box, put them in the truck, and took them home, and I washed them all off. And I think my wife took them to the bank where they counted them. She had something like $134 in pennies. There were 3 gallons of pennies. Well, and that happens quite frequently where you find stuff like that.
I've known Zeke for some years now. We both worked in radiator shops, and he even asked me to check out Amway with him at one time, but I failed to talk to him about Jesus.
And I've often wondered, you know, why he never knocked on my door 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I even actually one day rode over to Zeke's place and chickened out, turned around, went home.
My biggest find, I believe the most valuable thing to me that I have ever found was the Conflict of Ages series by Ellen White. Because we grew up with, my dad had one years and years ago when he was probably 10, 12 years old, a German one. But it was only the first book, the Patriarchs and Prophets one. And I remember with kids, as we were kids growing up, my brother Paul and I, my sister Margaret, and we would read that book and grew up, so I was kind of familiar with it. I was born and raised on a Hutterite colony in northeast corner of South Dakota, and had a very strong religious upbringing, that kind of stuff. Did a lot of work on the colony. They taught communal living and communal lifestyle, that we have all things in common, kind of out of the second chapter of the book of Acts. They have all things in common, you know, their goods and everything they sold and they shared with everybody, so nobody had want or need. When I was 17 years of age, I run away from home, and I got into all kinds of trouble. I drank a bottle of whiskey a day, and there was a time in my life I had reached a time when I was miserable drinking and I was miserable being sober, and there was not much use left to live. Why live?
For a long time, the Lord has put on my heart to go and see Him, and I chickened out.
Oh, yes. Dad always talked about that there was a series of them, and he never had the others. You know, so that to me was a valuable find. That was priceless to me. Thank you, Lord. Yes, this was worth it. You know, that tremendous wisdom and knowledge of the Scripture, I should say the Father's Word, because He is our Father. You know, we are His children. The Father's Word and the interpretation thereof, that wisdom is it's priceless. I still got them at home. I read them daily. I was teaching Sunday school one time at a church where I went to, and we went through the book of Ezekiel, and I came to Ezekiel chapter 20. Okay, and where God says the Sabbath day is a sign between you and me, that you may know who I am. Okay, God speaking. And I brought this up in the church, and I never knew leaders in the church could get so upset because I dare bring up the Sabbath day. You know, I like that Ezekiel 2020. Zeke has 2020 vision. You know, someday I'm going to get a license plate and it's going to fit just perfect. But that's what I plan, you know, that's been my walk. I've gone to a lot of different churches over the years, and I would always hear this, where the law was done away with at the cross, the 10 Commandments do not apply, and then why are they in there then? One preacher even told me one time, you may not even be welcome here, you know, because of some of the questions that I asked pertaining to the Sabbath day, for number one. I have always thought about going to the Seventh-day Adventist church, and the minister told me one time, the last pastor that I had, if you really want to get into legalism, that's what you'll get into. And I got to thinking, you know, how can that be possible? When they teach the Father's Word, you know, thy word is a light unto my feet and a lamp unto my path, the Father's Word. And God spake all these words saying, and you can sit in Sunday school and talk about, we ought to be obedient and not to sacrifice. It's better to obey than to sacrifice. Obey what? The Father's Word. And God spake all these words saying, I am the Lord thy God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. I know them 10 commands by heart. You know, I learned them. So why don't they apply? That's been my question.
It was another week before I went back. Hey, Zeke,
Yeah.
nice to see you. All right.
Hey, come on in.
All right.
Come on in.
Yeah.
Don't want to stand outside. Anyhow,
right.
what's up?
Oh, I just coming by, you know, it's like we've been talking and stuff about doing some studying and stuff together and everything, and I was just kind of coming over to see how we got this seminar going on, and I'd just like to invite you to it.
Oh, like that prophecy seminar thing I read about?
Yeah, that's the same
what
one.
What took you so long? You know, I've known you for 8 years or better. You know, yeah, I'd love to.
All right.
And then we sat for a couple of hours, and we talked about different things from the Scriptures, about the law and the commands. I just had a fantastic visit that whole evening with him.
I'm a janitor for Fergus Electric and Courtesy Chevrolet in Lewistown, Montana. I became a Christian 14 years ago, and I don't want anybody anymore to come to me and say, what was it that took you so long to come and visit me? You don't want that happening to you either. So I just implore you today, when the Lord speaks to you, just get out there and do what He tells you to do. If He tells you to invite someone to some of these meetings, get out there and do it. Don't be a chicken like I was. Don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. The Lord is there, and He's going to go before us.
I'm sure glad Carl finally decided to do that and did that, and I was so excited to be coming to their prophecy seminars that they were having. And what I didn't realize is, and I found out from that, is Jesus is coming back soon. this past Sabbath day when I got baptized, it was a very relaxing time. I was nervous, I will say that, because I had all those people watching, and I get stage fright real easy, and after baptism, it was like this garbage can I just dumped. It's empty. It was light moving it back compared to the way it was pushing it in. And once I came out of that water, I was refreshed. I felt empty. I felt renewed. A new creation in Christ Jesus. What a tremendous feeling. And the biggest thing that I liked about the whole thing is my wife and children were there to see that. That in itself was just a tremendous peace.
Who is the Lord putting on your heart right now? Who are you going to go and ask?
Don't be afraid, okay?
To learn more about mission, please visit AdventistMission.org.
I'm very happy to welcome Marshall and Rosemary Mackenzie, who are visiting from the Middle East, where they are serving in doing what, Marshall?
We are doing several things. We try to provide literature that meets relevant needs, because there's many different needs in the Middle East, and it's exciting to be able to meet with the people, find out what those needs are, and then be able to supply them with material that can help them to grow personally, that helps them to grow spiritually, and then at the same time to work with the young people. You realize in the Middle East there's lots of young people, and they're very active, they're always wanting to learn, and we're learning from them as much as they're learning from us. And so it's exciting to put those two things together.
Fantastic. Now, the Seventh-day Adventist Church is focusing very much on what can we do in the large cities, and I know in the Middle East you have huge cities. I was very interested to hear about a centre that you have been working with, a centre of influence. I think you call it For Your Life Centre or something like that.
Yeah, it's all about health, and it's about health awareness. But the center's also there to help people with English if they want to learn English. The center's there to help them overcome smoking. You know, where we live in the Middle East, they passed a new law that you can't smoke in the buildings.
Oh, good.
But a lot of the population still smokes. But as we were meeting people at the center, they wanted to stop. They wanted to quit. And so we offer, stop smoking. We do general health screening. So there's just different things that we exist there for to just help the community with their needs. The mayor of the community came actually for the opening of it, and they were excited about the potential of us just helping our neighbors. And it was exciting to see the response of our neighbors as we had the opportunity to open this center.
Excellent. Now, tell me about some of the responses.
We've had responses. Matter of fact, we had some of the young people that came in that weren't from Middle East University. They came through with their parent. One of them was a senior in high school, and she saw what was happening, and she said, "Can I translate?" And so here we now have this relationship with an 18-year-old who's a senior in high school, and we keep contact with her, and she actually helped us translate for 3 days. And so we have young people that we're making contact with. We also had other people. There's a lady that came into the center that didn't realize she had diabetes, and when she found out she actually had diabetes, there was a lot of stress she was carrying, and she just let it all out. And she spent literally an hour or more there just in tears, and some of our young people were next to her, and they were helping her, and now they visit her every weekend. They go to her home to just encourage her and see if she needs anything, and they just want to provide those needs that she has. And so they're developing that relationship, and so we met that. We've had, matter of fact, construction workers. They were on the job, and they came over and they went through the health screening, and in the process, they said, "Hey, here's my friend, take care of him, I got to go back to work." So taxi drivers that were saying, "I'll take you on your taxi, but you need to come into the center first." So just a lot of different experiences we had down at the center.
So Rosemary, it's all about making connections with people.
That's right. And it's really exciting to see how those connections are made. we're able to, because of that center, help in a special way displaced people that are in the country because of war in their region. They've come into our country, and so we're able to provide a special opportunity to provide screening for them and help in some of their other needs. There's a lady that was that needed to have a surgery so that she could keep her baby, and so because of the center, we were able to connect with her and help provide the medical care that she needed, not at our center, but to help her to get the care she needed.
Now, these refugees coming in from a war-torn country, are we talking like tens of people, hundreds of people, thousands? How many people?
Hundreds of thousands.
Wow. So that really makes things very interesting in the community.
It does, and you see the needs are real and the needs are deep.
Yeah.
It's not just, you know, can you give me $5 or whatever because I need some food. It's in multiple areas of their life, and to be able to be there and help them with that, that's really what it's all about. You know, connecting with them and making those relationships and friendships.
Wow. Now, Rosemary, you have a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 9-year-old. I know you're vitally involved in this ministry. How do you juggle everything?
That's a very good question. You know, my first focus is our home and our children.
Good.
And so then after that, then I have the opportunities. You know, some days I'm like, I look at the week and I'm like, I didn't really do anything other than just take care of my kids and my house. But then other weeks, like everything like pours in, and and I'm like, wow, I did this and this and this and this all in this one week. So it kind of comes and goes, which makes it easier and, you know, better for our family.
Yeah. Now, there may be a young person watching this program, and if they're thinking about maybe going for overseas mission service, what would you say to them?
I would say definitely take advantage of the opportunity while you're younger, and really look at it as a long-term commitment eventually. You know, the short term is wonderful, but you see if it fits you, and really pray about it, because the need is just tremendous. And we need young people to be involved in these service opportunities around the world.
Exactly. Rosemary and Marshall, thank you so much for joining us. And viewers at home, please pray for Marshall and Rosemary, their children, and the hundreds of mission workers all around the world. It can be lonely, it can be discouraging, but it can also be tremendously exciting, and it's wonderful for them to know that a world church is praying for them. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest, Earley Simon. Earley, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, you're one of the video producers at Adventist Mission, responsible for many of the beautiful videos that we see on this program. Thank you for that. Now, Earley, I'm kind of jealous because not so long ago you went to the city of Corinth. Tell us about Corinth.
You know, it was an amazing experience just to be there, because you read those stories in the Bible, and sometimes you can't really place where this is unless you like geography. Go look in the map, which is not the case for me.
Right.
So being there it was really amazing. The Bible is like coming to life, and I actually went back and read the chapter where Paul visited Corinth, and now I know because I was there. I actually got to walk down some of the ancient streets from 2,000 years ago there. So it was a pretty amazing experience. It's a beautiful place. It's located in the middle of 2 ports. So there's a port where it connects to Italy and Europe on one side, and there's a port from Asia. So it's a pretty central hub for a lot of the trading that would happen there. That still happens there, but that happened in ancient days as well. So Paul came to that city, huge city, a metropolis. They say there were estimated 700 to 800,000 people that live there. And so Paul is going there to do mission to the cities, you know. He's not going to talk to the small groups, he's going to talk to the masses. And the Bible tells us that when he reaches that city, he looks for people that he can connect with. And I don't know who were the first people that he found there, but he met Aquila and Priscilla, and he stayed with them. And one of the connecting factors that maybe linked Paul and Aquila and Priscilla so well is that they were tent makers. Paul was also a tent maker. And a tent maker means that they made tents. So they might have shared a lot of, secrets of the trade and special ways of making different types of tents. But that wasn't what Paul went there for, to learn new techniques. He went there to evangelize. And this was just his way of supporting his ministry as he was there. And just to be able to see those surroundings and where he preached was pretty exciting. On the beginning of the program, you saw Lechen Road from the ancient city. And this is a pretty well-preserved area. When we were there, they were actually renovating this center square, which is a high platform where people preach there. And that's the place that it's believed that's where Paul preached to the people. And from the surroundings that's still there for the remains, you can still tell that this was downtown, center of town. And Paul probably came there many times and preached to the people. As you walk down those roads, you see shops. You see places where people took baths, because there's a mountain nearby that the water would come down, and people took baths there in the middle of downtown, which is a pretty different concept for us nowadays. But there are also prisons. That's something that caught my attention. There were several prisons there, and I guess at that time it was a point to bring people there for being judged, if they were going to really go to jail, if they really had committed a crime, or if they're going to be freed. And they brought those people there, so at the center of town they would be recognized, and they would people would see the crime that they did. It was supposed to bring shame to them. So there's a lot of stuff happening in that one place that we got to visit there, and that's the location where Paul preached most of his sermons there.
Yali, you remind us of something very important, that Paul was planting churches in urban areas. And when you read through the book of Acts, it's basically the story of urban mission. And the Christian churches were established in the cities because these are the places where the people were, and they were also the places of influence from where the gospel would go. And in fact, the word pagan meant from the country. So it's kind of interesting. I remember visiting Ephesus, and again, Paul ministered there as well, and it just struck me how closely people were living together, and these churches were meeting in people's homes in the heart of the city. They didn't have a church building like we do. Now, Yali, when you left that place, what sort of feelings did you have?
I felt part of the story.
Yeah.
I felt like it really happened. And it helped me to focus on some of the things that Paul did in reaching the cities, Sometimes we think that we'll just connect with people on Facebook or Twitter, or we'll tell them to go watch a TV program like this one, which is a way for people to get connected with Jesus and to know Jesus and for us to make connections with people. But I think Paul's example is very unique in the sense that he went there. He was there. He went to where people were. He preached from there. He wasn't afraid. He made special connection with individuals, and it worked.
Exactly.
The Bible tells us that there's a lot of baptisms that he reaped from there.
He followed Jesus' example of mingling among people. Yeah. Yali, you mentioned tent making, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because today, our viewers at home, we need more tent makers. This is a term we use for people who support their ministry through their own trade, their own business, their own profession. Many parts of the world, we cannot send missionaries, we cannot do traditional evangelism, but we need tent makers. And Yali, I want to talk to you a little bit too about this magazine, Mission 360, full of stories. Brand new magazine, you can find it online at mission360mag.org, and there you can download it onto your iPad, onto your iPhone, to your Kindle, whatever. But this will be full of stories, and there will be tent maker stories here as well.
Very nice.
Yali, thank you so much for sharing with us about the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul is, like Jesus, is our example of coming among the people, ministering to them, mingling, showing sympathy, winning confidence, and leading people to Jesus.
Сказал, а я услышал, промолчал. Бог так часто говорит, я на льдинку, льдинку сердца моего. Льдинка выросла с годами, превратилась в белый айсберг, равнодушие к святому, равнодушие к слезам. Бог сказал, а ты услышал, промолчал. Бог так часто говорит, очерствело сердце, больше не болит. Сколько можно с Божьим именем безбожно жить с названием красивым, только сердцем ледяным. Нам подолгу с неба капают слезинки, но не тают наши льдинки, льдинки больше с каждым днем. Прости нас, Боже, растопи огнем.
I hope your hearts were touched by that music video all the way from Krasnodar, Russia. Let's pray that God will melt our hearts and make us even more receptive to His Word in our lives. There are so many people whose hearts are longing to learn of God's love. Here at Adventist Mission, we've created mission cards for kids, featuring pictures of children from all around the world. They're especially designed for Sabbath school teachers to give to each child to take home. Perhaps you might like to order some, but you'd like to also see a sample set of cards first. No problem, just call us or visit our website and ask for mission cards for kids, or ask for offer number 302. Please remember to clearly state your name, mailing address, and be sure to mention mission cards for kids or offer 302. Well, that's about it for today's program. I hope you've been challenged, and I hope you've been inspired by what you've seen and heard. For Adventist Mission, I'm Gary Krause, and I hope you can join me next time right here on Global Mission Snapshots.